First and foremost, all praise, honor, and glory are due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and who lead as examples to the flock. Peace and salutations to the Akim pushing his word in all sincerity, in all honesty, making that sacrifice. Started with 144,000, the elect men who have been given the understanding of this new song to go out and sing it in the highways and the byways and in these videos. And to the rest of the believers, the men, women, and children who make up the large multitude, who have been given the spirit of understanding, that we may come repenting through the sacrifice of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, our Lord, that we may once again be reconciled to our God, that we may inherit the promises made unto our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Shalom. This lesson is going to be entitled, Be Not Conformed to This World. Be not conformed, to this world. And as we look out into the world, it's all messed up. Everything is hypersexualized. Lying and deceiving is normalized and encouraged. Adultery is rampant. Having a normal heterosexual relationship is rare and is seen as boring. The news is all lies. Geopolitics is all about, the rich getting richer, their wars. The music industry is full of witchcraft, and hypersexualization, and promoting gang culture. And it's all a bunch of madness. The ways of thinking of the majority of people are immoral, void of understanding, and it's just about chasing pleasure from one thing to the next, right? So we're going to start here in Romans chapter 12 and verse 2, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. The first thing I wanted to do was to look up that word conform and go to the root of it. So this is the root of the word transform. It's the word schema, right? It's the word schema, right? And it says a figure, by implication, external condition, fashion. If you go down to the outline of the biblical usage, it says the habitus, as comprising everything in a person which strikes the senses, the figure, bearing, discourse, actions, manner of life. So it's everything about you is your schema. How you think, how you act, how you go about decision making, the things that please you, the things that are important to you. Everything that comprises your being is your habitus. Now, I want to also bring out, that word habitus in terms of sociology, right? Or the sociological context, behind that word habitus. So it says habitus in sociology refers to the ingrained, durable dispositions, skills, and tendencies that shape how individuals perceive and respond to the social world. And if you look up that word disposition, right, it says the person's inherent qualities of mind and character, right? So it's your temperament, it's your habits, it's your thoughts, it's you, right? So it's your tendencies that shape, right, how individuals perceive and respond to the social world. It's a concept developed by Pierre Bourdieu, explaining how social structures become embodied within individuals, influencing their taste, preferences, and actions, right? So the social constructs that you grew up in, whether it be the church, your family, school, the friends that you have, your work environment, the music you consume, the movies you watch, the books you read, everything, right, that you surround yourself with, right, it influences your tastes, your preference, and your actions, right? So it says internalized social structures. Habitus is not just a set of conscious beliefs, but rather deeply ingrained patterns of thought, feeling, and actions that are acquired through socialization and experience within a particular social environment. So growing up in this world, that is devoid of truth, you're going to develop habits that are niggardly, that are prideful, that are immoral, because that's how the world is, right? So it says it shapes how individuals perceive their social world, influencing their preferences, tastes, and even their physical demeanor. That's how you carry yourself, right? Habitus is relatively stable and can be carried across different social contexts, though it can be modified by what? New experiences. So when we go back to the scripture, right, and it says, but be ye transformed, right? Let's look up that word, transformed. So like that's not it, interlinear. Let's look up that word transformed. I didn't have it pulled up. Metamorpho, which you get the word metamorphosis from, which is change, right? So it says to change into another form, to transform. The word trans means across, right? So you change forms. To transfigure, right? So that's what it means, right? To transform literally or figuratively, metamorphose, change, transfigure, transform. You look up that word metamorphose, right? Undergo metamorphosis, especially into the adult form, right? So let's get back to the definition that we had here. So it says durable and transposable. Habitus is relatively stable. So this is the section that we're reading right here. Habitus is relatively stable and can be carried across different social contexts, though it can be modified by new experiences. So when coming into this truth, right, you modify, Salakia, you modify your habitus, your habits, your thoughts, your patterns, by becoming a new man. Right, let's get that. I didn't have that pulled up either. Right, so this is Ephesians chapter 2, right, and I'll read from Shalatia, Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 22, that ye put off concerning the former conversation the old man, which is corrupt according to deceitful lust, because those are the social habits that we internalized, from the relationships that we had in the world, your work, church, school, friends that you have, music you listen to, all of that, right? That's what ingrained those deceitful lusts in us. But now you put that off and be renewed, right, in the spirit of your mind, that you put on the new man, which after God is created in righteousness and true holiness, wherefore putting away lying, speak every man truth to his neighbor, for we are members one of another, right? So you put on the new man, as it said, new experiences modify the habitus, right? While habitus is shaped by social structures and experiences, it also allows for individual agency and adaptation within those structures. So even though different people might grow up in the same social context, they may have slightly, different habits, but their morals will pretty much be the same, right? A person's habitus might influence their choice of clothing, their communication styles, their career aspirations, and their social interactions, all reflecting their background and social position. Now, another thing I wanted to get, right, is an experiment, right? The results of an experiment. So Solomon Ash, was a psychologist, and he did some experiments. I forget when these experiments were done. Let me see if I can look it up. Solomon Ash. All right, so Solomon Ash here is, of course, an Edomite, Polish-American psychologist. So he lived in Poland, right? He was born in Poland, 1907, and he died in 1996 in the United States, right? So let's read about his conformity experiments. So I asked this Claude AI chat, explain the implications of the results of Solomon's conformity experiments, right? So for those who are not, familiar with Solomon's conformity experiments, there are many different variations, but one variation is pretty much you have 3 persons or 2 persons in the room, who are a part of the experiment. They know what's going on, and then that one person who is ignorant. And say, for example, you put 4 different lines in front of them of different lengths, right? And you have one that's obviously the shortest. What you do is you have the 3 persons that are working with you choose a wrong length and say this is the shortest, and then you'll see how many people conform to the social pressure and choose the obviously incorrect one, even though the one that's correct is obvious and there's no doubt, right? What you will see is that many people conform right, to the wrong decision just because others are doing it. So we're reading it here. It says Ash's conformity experiments revealed several profound implications about human social behavior and the power of group influence. Right? The most striking finding was that approximately 75%, so that's 3/4 of participants, conformed to obvious incorrect group judgments at least once, even when the task was unambiguous, meaning it's clear cut, right? The correct one is clear cut. There's no there is no confusion about what is right or wrong, right? This demonstrated that social pressure can override clear sensory evidence, so your eyes are seeing something, but you're overriding that, and rational judgment showing conformity operates even when we know better, right? So another precept comes to mind here. This is 1 Corinthians 15:33. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. And if you read that in the NLT, it's even clearer. Don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company corrupts good character. Right? So it says here that conformity operates even when we know better. Right? The experiment reveals key variables that affect conformity rates. Unanimous group opposition created the strongest pressure, while even one dissenting ally dramatically reduced conformity. Meaning, if you have just one person there, right, that's thinking correctly like you are, it will counter the effects of social pressure, right? Which is an important reason why you should never forsake the brotherhood, the assembly of the brotherhood. Let me get that: forsake not the assembling. Believe how that's how it's worded. Forsake not. Come on. Believe it's Hebrews 10. God damn it. No, it's Hebrews 10. All right, let me just check Hebrews 10. Bear with me here. Should have had this pulled up. Hebrews 10. Call to persevere. Here we go. So it's Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 24. It says, let us, in the NLT, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works, right? Let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but let us encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near, right? So we shouldn't neglect coming together, because when we come together with like-minded brothers, right, that helps to combat, right, the social pressure that's out there in the world. Because if you're constantly out in the world, right, you're interacting with your co-workers, your family members who don't believe, you're watching television programs and listening to music, that doesn't conform to the same beliefs that you conform to. Eventually you starts to alter your way of thinking and your way of decision making, right? So you have to constantly watch videos, pray, do videos, be around brothers, so that renews your spirit, right? So there's another point I wanted to bring out, right? Ash identified two primary reasons for people to conform: informational influence, believing the group has better information, and normative influence, wanting to fit in to avoid social rejection. Many participants experienced genuine doubt about their perceptions when faced with unanimous opposition, while others knew they were right but went along to avoid standing out, right? And that's important. So there's another thing that I wanted to bring out. And it was that when they were alone, right? When they were alone, right? They did what was right, right? They chose the right thing, right? When they weren't exposed to social pressure, right? But what happens is, in this world, right, we're constantly isolated in a bad way, and one of the ways, the most effective way that we're isolated is through the phone, right? When you're in your phone, especially when you're not doing something constructive, you're so scrolling on social media, you're watching, stupid videos on TikTok, and especially, people in the world, especially people who are highly dependent on AI and like ChatGPT and stuff like that, all right? That's isolating them, from, good ways of thinking, right? And it influences them. The phone itself is a gateway into that group pressure multiplied by 1,000. Because when you go into your phone and you scroll through social media, you see thousands of people out into the world at once. You're not just seeing one or two people that you're interacting on a day-to-day basis. No, you have the ability to interact with the world, right? And the social media algorithms are set up in such a way that the things that are not profitable are what is going to be marketed to you. And also because the majority of the people in the world are not of the same mindset that we are of. So you're going to see things that contradict the scriptures, right? And you're going to, follow it up. Right? This is Exodus 23 and verse 2. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. Let's read that in the NLT. Right? It says, you must not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you are called to testify in a dispute, do not be swayed by the crowd to twist justice. And that's what the conformity experiment just explained. That sometimes, even when you know what's right, you conform because you don't want to stick out. You don't want to be a social reject, right? So you don't follow the multitude in doing wrong. The truth is the truth even when only one person believed it. Even when no one believed the truth, it's still the truth. If everybody decides that, I don't believe that the sky is blue, the sky is still blue, right? It exists outside of your opinions, right? Ephesians 2:1, and you hath he quickened who were dead in trespasses and sins, who wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience, among whom we all had our conversation in time past, in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the mind and of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. So we were like that. We had that habitus, where we were just constantly chasing the desires of the mind and of the flesh. Because when you really reduce, the lifestyle outside of the truth to its lowest common denominator, it's really just chasing the desires of the mind and of the flesh, right? That's all you're doing. You're just chasing what you want from one moment to the next, right? So let's get the next precept. This is James 4:4. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship of the world is enmity with God? No, whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. You can't conform both to the world and to the truth. You cannot serve both God and mammon. Do you think that the scripture saith in vain, the spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? Right? This is now 1 Peter 1:14. As obedient children, not fashioning yourself according to your former lust. And if you look up that word fashioning, I bet it goes back to schema. All right, let's look up the word. Not fashioning. Yep, schematizo. The same word, conforming, right? Fashioning yourself. So it's the same word schematizo, which the root word is schema, right? So not fashioning yourselves, right, according to the former lust in your ignorance, but as he that has called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation. And that word conversation goes back to your way of life. Because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. And if ye call on the Father, who without respect of person judgeth according to every man's work, pass the time of your sojourning here in fear. For as much that as ye know that ye were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold from your vain conversation received by the tradition from your fathers, right? Because we inherited a lot of the bad behaviors and the bad mindset and the bad patterns from our foreparents, from the social constructs that we grew up in, right? But with the precious blood of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. Now, I love reading this precept here in the NLT, this verse, John 2:15. It says, do not love the world, nor the things it offers you. For when you love the world, you do not have the love of the Father in you. For the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure. You crave food. You crave owning technological things. You crave sexual desire. It's all about craving, and you're running from one craving to the next. A craving for everything we see, right? And and if you realize, even with companies that are set up to make money, they prey on that craving, right? So you have color psychology, right? Red and orange ignites lust. So if you notice, most, if not all, fast food brands, their branding has red or orange in it, like KFC and stuff like that. There's red in it. The way how new technological devices are marketed, right? They're marketed in such a way as if you can't live without it. You have to upgrade, right? So it says it's a craving for everything we see, right? Ads are marketed to make you crave for them. And pride in our achievements and possession. You're proud that you have the latest phone. You're proud that you have a nice car. You're proud that you have a nice home. You're proud that you have a nice job, a good-looking woman. You're proud of your achievements, right? And that's something that we've grown up with. You should have pride. You should be proud of yourself, and you should have pride in yourself. We're taught that, right? Pride in our achievements and possession. These are not from the Father, but from the world. As the world is fading away along with everything that people crave. But anyone who does what God pleases lives forever. And I believe that was it. All right, so hopefully this lesson was edifying. Until next time, Shalom.